Fallout Equestria Survivor's Guilt, Chapter 7, Part 2. We arrived in Junction town that evening, and the war meeting was scheduled for the next day, so me and Arclight were settling into our hotel room when there was a knock on the door.
Scootaloo Dash?
The uniformed mare on the other side asked as she sized me up.
Yes, that's me. Can I help you?
I asked, and I was worried all of a sudden.
President Grimfeathers just wants to have a word with you in her office,
The soldier said. She looked at Arclight as she approached.
Just Scootaloo. The president was very insistent. I'll be fine,
I said.
Okay, just be careful.
I nodded and followed the NCR soldier through Junction town, past a statue of a mayor in a park area, and into the main government building for the NCR. I wasn't quite sure what to expect as the soldier talked to some pony inside of the president's office before allowing me inside after relieving me of my weapons. President Regina Grimfeathers was a female griffin with dark wings that looked like she had seen more than her fair share of combat. She was seated behind her desk, but what surprised me most was that she was accompanied by Midnight.
Scootaloo, I'm finally glad I got to meet you. I'm just sorry that it wasn't under better circumstances,
Regina said as she offered me a claw in which I shook.
Likewise, Madam President,
I said with a smile.
So, is everything okay? We have a concern about the recent broadcast from the Enclave,
Regina said and nodded to Midnight.
This is sensitive information, but General Sparkle here felt it would be prudent to write you in on it given the nature of it. The Enclave's broadcasts reach everywhere in Equestria, which isn't anything unusual,
Midnight said before continuing.
Except for the fact that it was also broadcast into the stables. Not even the MAS-EBS system is powerful enough to do that. In fact, there's only one thing in Equestria that's connected across Equestria and in its stables.
A chill ran down my spine. I knew exactly what they meant, and I didn't like it.
You mean, the Enclave is hijacking the stable tech all-clear signal? But that's impossible. You need the code, and one of the leaders of stable tech or their descendants,
Regina finished, folding her claws and looking at me sadly.
I need to know everything you know about any ponies related to either yourself or Applebloom. Serenity didn't do this, and she's still the only living descendant that I have that I know of,
I said with a sigh.
As for Applebloom, it's something I promised her I won't tell any pony. Scootaloo, this is a matter of national security. We can account for the whereabouts of the descendants of the Apple family from Stable 2, but we need to know if there's any pony else out there,
Midnight said.
Applebloom would understand.
I paused for a long moment before sighing a little.
Applebloom had a son. She gave him up for adoption when he was just a baby after his father died in the war. The only thing I know for sure is that he was on the list for Stable 48 out near Reno.
Regina and Midnight exchanged a long glance before Midnight spoke up again.
Scootaloo, Stable 48 has gone quiet, she said somberly. It occasionally sends scouts up until a few months ago, but we don't know what's happening there.
My blood ran cold at that revelation. What happened to Stable 48? The next day, the Typhoon arrived after having traveled from the south and west in order to pick up more ponies that could help us out. I was making my way through the town when I saw a familiar Pegasus ghoul look up at a statue at the center of a park.
Hey, Ditzy,
I said as I came in for a stop next to her. She turned and gave me a smile before writing something on her chalkboard.
Hey, Scootaloo, it's good to see you again,
she wrote before erasing it and writing again.
Did you have any luck? Oh, yeah, it turns out I have a descendant who lives in the Crystal Wasteland,
I said.
So, how's it been going with you?
She erases the chalkboard and writes on it again.
About the same. I'm glad you found what you were looking for. Yeah, me too,
I said with a soft smile.
Even with everything that's going on, it's nice to know that some things worked out. So, where's Silverbell? She went to talk with the caravans that are arriving in town,
Ditty wrote, then added with a shake of her head.
There have been less coming into the NCR since the speech.
I sighed a little. I hated that the NCR was in this position in part because of me. The Enclave was turning good ponies against the best chance Equestria had at recovering from the war. The Enclave seemed to be making a lot of good promises, but I had no idea if they were really ever being honest. And honestly, I had no idea if I really wanted to know. Something about all of this felt really weird to me. I spotted a familiar dark blue Pegasus with a rainbow mane and smiled a little. I thanked Ditzy for her time before heading over to talk to Rain.
Hey, Scootaloo, it's good to see you again,
Rain said with a smile as she waved at me when I approached.
So, how was your trip up north? It was actually great. I met my distant granddaughter Serenity, a nice kid,
I said with a smile.
Thanks for pointing me towards Stable 13, you really helped me out. Anything for family?
Rain said with a smile before looking uncomfortable for a moment.
Did you find out about,
Rainbow Dash adopting me? I asked and she nodded.
Yeah, I saw the memory orb she left behind for me. Did you know? Yeah, I did,
Rain admitted, rubbing her foreleg.
I met Spectrum Flash while I was there, and she asked me to keep it a secret if I ever met you. She was worried that if you found out before you could see the memory orbs, it wouldn't help. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the whole truth.
I paused for a long moment. Rainrunner was my sister through adoption, and I had always hoped that if I ever did have a sister, she'd be more honest with me. And at the same time, though, I understood why Spectrum had asked her to keep that quiet.
It's okay, Rain,
I said and offered her a hoof.
Family forgives each other, right? Right,
she said with a smile, and she shook my hoof.
Thank you, Scootaloo. I'm really glad that you're my sister. I'm glad you're mine too, Rain,
I said with a smile, and I hugged her gently.
So, how did it go with the project? Oh, it was crazy. It turns out they wanted us to access a megaspell locked away in a mountain near New Pegasus,
Rain said with a shake of her head.
If he had to access it, he could have dominated the wasteland. Thanks, Celestia, we stopped it.
Indeed, I said with a nod.
So did he have any other ponies that he had created? Yeah, quite a few,
Rain said, shifting uncontrollably for just a moment.
We're trying to get them and the ponies that already created integration into the normal society, or, well, as normal as you can get, in New Pegasus. Well, I'm glad, and I hope it all gets worked out,
I said with a nod, and I checked my time on my pip book.
It's time for the meeting. Here, let's go.
Rain nodded as we headed towards the main building, where the meeting was to take place. I was a bit surprised by the gathered group when I arrived and took my seat. A lot of the ponies that I had met over the course of my journey were there, including Ruby, Midnight, Zariah, Calamity, Velva Remedy, Jade, Shooting Star, and Vanilla. But at the same time, there were others that I haven't ever met, including a unicorn dressed in Applejack's Ranger's power armor, standing next to Midnight. On the table in front of us, there was a map of Equestria with X's all over the Crystal Empire, New Pegasus, Winneapolis, and Trotston.
Thank you all for coming. For those who don't know me, I am General Midnight Sparkle, the commander of the NCR Rangers,
Midnight said.
So, we have a serious problem on our hooves at this point. We've encountered the Enclave 4 times at this point since the end of the initial conflict with them, each time under the command of one of the 7 Wonderbolt Generals. We don't know anything about the President other than what Lieutenant Star has told us. Which admittedly isn't much,
Star said with a sigh before telling the group basically what she had told me before on Nomad City.
So, Winter Breeze is an enigma, I'm afraid. There's some rumors that she was in Seattle during the Great Schism, but that's about it. Curious. She doesn't seem familiar to me,
the Applejack's Ranger member said through her mechanically distorted voice.
I guess we didn't cross paths. So that's what we don't know. What do we know about the Enclave's activities?
I asked as I looked at the map all over again.
Yeah, 3 of the generals are still under the radar,
Midnight said with a sigh.
2 of them are dead, and the other 2 that are known have vanished. One of them isn't even in Equestria,
Star said, making every pony look at her.
General Stardust, she's been based out of the Zebralands for years. The other generals aren't particularly fond of her, but she's apparently made contact with one of the tribes and convinced them to help her. I have my doubts that she'll ever be called back, but we don't know what she'll have at her disposal if she does.
Zariah's eyes narrowed at that revelation. What followed was a series of words in a language I didn't understand.
Zariah, what's wrong?
Ruby asked as she looked over at the Zebra DJ worriedly.
If the Zebralands are being invaded, there's only one tribe that would ally themselves with them if it benefited them,
Zariah said.
The One.
I'm admittedly not an expert on zebra culture, and by the looks of it, neither was any pony else at the table. I vaguely remembered that the zebras had 13 tribes, but what did she mean by the One? I vaguely remember a letter from Dinky mentioning a history teacher at Luna's Academy that knew about this kind of thing. So where was he when I needed him?
We'll worry about that later if it becomes important,
Midnight said.
In the meantime, we don't have the capability to reach the Zebralands with enough force and fight while the Enclave are here. We'll have to worry about them later.
She looked at every pony around the table for a long moment, as if trying to figure out what to say.
Things aren't gonna be easy for us. The Enclave isn't wrong about one thing. Since the end of the war with the Crimson Empire, the NCR has been mostly focused on internal matters and not helping Equestria. We can build our defenses up, but we'll have to do more than just that. Oh, Velvet, what's the status on the followers' relief efforts? Well, we established contact with Terra Nova and Haven, so we're making progress in the south and northeast, but only to a point,
Velvet said.
Even so, some of the settlements that we've made contact with have already started to ask us to leave. And then there's the matter of the Enclave's propaganda,
Vanilla added bitterly.
We're gonna have to counter that somehow. DJ Pon3 will be able to help,
Zariah said.
I'll get him to address many of the Enclave's points, as well as to announce that the NCR will be helping more. I'm sure it'll be easy to get to The Voice, Windtalker, and Refuge to do the same. What about Scootaloo?
Ruby asked, and they all looked at me.
So what do we do with her?
There was a long pause as the group tried to figure out what to say, and I was suddenly very nervous. What would they do to me?
We can't turn her over to the Enclave,
the ranger said.
If we do, we'll be no better than they are.
I really like that mare.
Then, what do we do with her?
Midnight asked.
I need to investigate Stable 48,
I said with finality in my voice.
If Applebloom still has any descendants left in that stable, we have to be certain about what happened in there. Especially if the Enclave is involved somehow. We'll have some rangers from New Pegasus meet up with you in Reno,
Midnight offered.
Do you have any idea why the Enclave might be interested in stables all of a sudden?
I paused for a long moment, and it was hard to figure out just how much to tell them. 48 wasn't just an ordinary stable, it was also a stable connected to Protocol Zeta, and keeping that locked away took priority over anything else. Was it possible that the Enclave knew about Zeta somehow? That would be the worst case scenario if they could figure out what the stables were that had the locks, but even so, getting into it wouldn't be an easy task. That was one secret that deserved to stay buried.
Alright, it's settled,
Midnight said after there was no further arguments, and she took a deep breath.
The Enclave Remnant may be the greatest threat we've ever faced since the Goddess was defeated, and at this point, they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. We've backed the Enclave into a corner, and a cornered animal is when it's the most dangerous. Prepare the troops, ready the airships, and prepare the people. United we stand, divided we fall.
We nodded as we were dismissed. I had to go find Arclight and Schooner so we could get ready to go. I just had a hope that we weren't too late.
So, you want to go checking out another stable?
Ark asked as we met up near a restaurant in Junction town.
We seem to be visiting a lot of them, don't we? Yeah, well, 48 might be important to the war effort if we can figure out what happened with Applebloom's family,
I said with a shrug.
Really, it might be a dead end, but it's worth checking out at least. I see,
Ark said as she shook her head a little bit.
Are you absolutely certain that this is where we need to go next?
I thought for a long moment. Stable 48 was a good distance away because it was in Reno, but getting there wouldn't be much of a problem. At the same time though, I had no idea how the stable dwellers there would react. There was ultimately one answer I could give, and even if it wasn't the best option, it was what we would have to do.
Yeah, it is,
I said with a nod.
Stable 48 needs to be investigated either way, especially since it seems to have gone quiet. If there's nothing there, then we can just go back to Central Equestria and regroup. You don't have to come with me if you don't want to.
Ark thought for a long moment before shaking her head.
I'm with you all the way, Scootaloo. Let's just hope that we're not on a wild goose chase, so... what can you tell me about Stable 48? Well, Stable 48 was intended to experiment with how society was structured,
I said with a sigh.
So, every pony at birth is placed within one of the divisions in the stable. Administration, medical, security, food services, science, and breeding, along with the possibility of members of them being able to leave the stable after so many years to recon the area around it. Wait, breeding?
Ark asked.
Yeah, mares and stallions would be picked based on their genetic profile for the purpose of reproduction every spring,
I said.
The purpose of which was to keep the population in the stable maintained. Given that it was sending out scouting parties a few months ago, I don't know what really happened there. Jeez, sounds like a real winner,
Ark said with a shake of her head.
Sounds a bit iffy to me, really. We had precautions, ideally as many stables as possible were given the chance to survive,
I said, rubbing the back of my head.
Well, here's hoping at least, right? Yeah,
Ark said with a shrug.
It's worth a try at least. I just hope that we find some answers there.
Me too, I said with a nod and looked up at the sky. Me too.
Aw, why can't I go too?
Serenity asked as I was getting my stuff packed in our hotel room.
I can fight, why do I have to stay? Serenity, I don't doubt your ability,
I said as I hugged the filly gently.
I would love nothing more for you to come with me, but I've got a special job for you. Wait, you do?
Serenity asked with a cute tilt of her head, and she looked up at me.
Yeah, so you're a Crusader too, right?
I asked, and she nodded.
Then, I'm putting you in charge of the Crusader operations here in Nomad City in Junction Town. Your job is to protect your friends and family in the event of an Enclave attack. So, do you think you can handle it? Yeah, I can handle it,
Serenity said with a smile, and she hugged me tightly.
Just promise me that you'll come back, okay? I don't want to lose you again. I promise I'll come back,
I said, ruffling the filly's mane gently.
Be brave for me, okay? Help your mom and your friends out whenever you can. They're your family too, no matter what.
Serenity nodded and released a hug.
I promise I will. I'll be the best pony I can be. I know you will be, Crusader Serenity,
I said with a smile as I saluted and she saluted back.
Now, go play with Pureheart. She's been waiting for you for like 10 minutes. Okay,
Serenity said and ran off as Vanilla entered the room.
Hey, Scootaloo. I see you managed to talk her out of running after you.
Vanilla said with a chuckle.
Yeah, don't worry about it,
I said with a chuckle as well.
She's a good kid. You did a great job raising her. Thanks, I try my best,
Vanilla said with a sigh.
I just wish that she'd listen to me, more is all. She just wants to do what she thinks is right,
I said as I put the last of my ammo and supplies away.
In my experience, no pony ever chooses to be a hero. Instead, they get chosen. Yeah, tell me about it. I just left home to find a new door.
Vanilla said and shot me a look.
Not one word. I get that enough already. Okay, I won't say anything,
I said with a little chuckle before turning serious.
Keep her close, Vanilla. I don't know how bad things are gonna get, but just in case, make sure that she's safe. I'll always try to,
Vanilla said with a nod.
Just come back alive, okay?
I will, I said with a nod.
I'll see you when we get back.
With that, I headed out of the hotel room to go meet up with Arclight again. As I walked down the streets towards the transport area for Junction Town, I ran into Ruby Starlight, who looked like she was looking for me.
Hey Ruby, is everything okay? Scootaloo, I need to ask you something in private before you leave,
Ruby said quietly, and I looked at her strangely but nodded as we went into one of the nearby alleys to talk.
Why are you so insistent about going to Stable 48? Is it about what you were looking at in 26?
I paused for a long moment as I looked at the alicorn in the eye. This wasn't gonna be easy. I knew she likely suspected that there was something going on here, but I didn't know how much I should tell her. Of all the ponies in Equestria, Ruby was the one that I was sure I could trust. She was a good pony, but she understood the necessity of secrets and the risks of exposing them to the world.
Yes, it is,
I said with a sigh.
I can't tell you more, I'm afraid. This is something that needs to stay buried for as long as possible. If this got out, the consequences for Equestria could be dire on all sides. I know it's hard to understand, but this is something that I have to make sure that history doesn't wind up repeating itself. Please, don't tell any pony about what I did in Stable 26, okay?
Ruby paused for a long moment, considering what I had said before nodding.
Okay, Scootaloo, I trust you. If you say that it needs to be kept secret, I won't question it. Thank you,
I said with a smile.
If it comes to it, I promise I will tell you everything. Okay, I'll see you later,
Ruby said before walking off. Then I watched her go for a minute before heading to the landing zone. I climbed aboard the vertibuck that was going to take us towards Reno. I put in my earbuds in my ears and closed my eyes, listening to the music as the raspy voice of a stallion was heard singing. Level up. Perk received. Rad filly. Details. Because of a mutation to your body from radiation, you gain more of a resistance to radiation. Regenerate 2 HP per 200 rads.